Okay, welcome to today's episode where we are talking about the problem with donating toys. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some of the messages that we accidentally send when we donate toys. And I just want to talk to you about some ways to be a little bit more mindful about it. Hey, Jessica and Stacy and Cassandra. So that's what we're talking about real quick, but I want to give you guys a quick announcement too, and that is that next week, starting on May 28th, we are doing a free decluttering challenge. It's the Clutter Free Motherhood challenge. It's 4 days long, where I am going to be walking you through a lot of the mindset and struggles and hurdles that you have when you are trying to declutter but can't quite get it done. And then I'm going to be giving you decluttering projects each day. So that is next week. If you want to sign up, I'll put the link for it in the description or in the comments. Or if you've got a good memory, it's pretty easy. It's just bit.ly/Clutter Free Motherhood, and you can get into that. I'm going to be running it live, and I really love it when we do live because the group and collective energy is always really good and really productive and really valuable for the moms who do it. So that is next week. And next week, the episodes that we're going to be doing are going to be highlighting moms who have done courses with me and just highlighting and telling their stories of what the decluttering process has been like for them. So I'm really excited to pair that up with the challenge because the moms that I'll be talking with have done the challenges and the courses, and they all have their own unique stories about how they got started, why they got started, what the process actually looked like for them, how it made them feel, lessons that they've learned. So we're going to be covering all of that and just kind of shining a light on them and their stories and their progresses next week. I am super excited about that. So Brittany says, I can't wait. I think Brittany was talking about the challenge. Hopefully, Brittany, you can't wait for hearing everybody else's stories too. It's just kind of nice. I really love the community aspect that has grown in here. Okay, I started it as a blog, which, doesn't have a whole ton of community. Hey, Janie, a blog, and then we did some challenges and stuff, but this really tight-knit community. And everyone in here is always like cheering each other on and supporting each other. So I'm just super excited to highlight you guys and all of the progress that we've made within like the last year or so, sometime within the last year or so. So those are the announcements. Now let's get to talking about the problem with donating toys. Okay, so you're probably like, what's wrong with donating toys? Like, that's a great thing to do. It is. And so I just want to preface this because there's always somebody who will twist my words around. I just want to preface this that donating the toys is not a problem. Okay, I'm never going to say don't be generous, don't give, don't do that. But I do kind of want to start a conversation about these messages that we unintentionally send when we say certain things about donating our toys. So if you are watching live, if you're not watching live, put in the comments too, but especially if you're watching live, how many of you have told your kids in an attempt to get them to be okay with letting go of their toys that you are going to give them to kids who don't have any or to kids who don't have a lot? Okay, so I have done it. I've done it. Like I tell you guys all the time, like I'm never going to talk to you guys about something or recommend something that I haven't done or do or, whatever myself. But put in the comments if you've done that. When it comes to decluttering your toys and you're like, what the heck do I do with all this? I know. I'll tell my kids and myself that we're going to give these toys to a kid who doesn't have any. Okay, I've done it. It's totally okay. However, this is kind of my thoughts around it and have been my thoughts around it for a really long time. Okay, even before we decluttered, like before we ditched all of our stuff. Oops. I said this to my kids, like, we're going to give them to kids who don't have any. Okay. And it always felt weird to me and I could never really figure out why. And I finally have, but this is why it's weird to me, because when we do that, okay, the reason that you're decluttering is that you want to find a life, that's simpler and easier and not focused on the things. So that's great. However, we're contradicting ourselves when we tell our kids and ourselves that we're going to give this stuff to somebody else and it's going to make them happy, even though we're like, I don't want this stuff because this stuff doesn't make me happy. So underneath the surface, what we're saying is that these kids who don't have toys or don't have a lot of toys can't be happy, right? Do you see why that's a little bit flawed and why that's not really the best message we could be sending, right? Like they don't have toys. They're struggling so badly. They're so unhappy without these toys. Now they're going to be happy because they get all of our crap that we don't want. Okay. That's a little bit harsh. You don't word it like that, but essentially to me, that's the message. And that's why I stopped telling my kids that. It just felt weird. It just felt wrong. Okay. There are people who are saying, yep, guilty. I've done it. Totally do it. Me. Okay. So, and at the end, we're going to talk about kind of a different way to address it so it doesn't feel so contradictory. Okay. So that's the first kind of backwards message that we're sending, is that these kids are lacking and unhappy because they don't have toys or because they don't have a lot of toys. When we all know you don't get happiness from your things or from how many toys you have. Okay. The second message that it unintentionally sends is that the parents who can't provide a whole slew of toys or a huge amount of toys are lacking in some way. They're not giving their kids enough, which is a crazy message. Okay. Like, we already struggle with that, right? We already struggle as parents, as moms especially, of like, I'm not giving my kids enough. I'm not doing enough for my kids. And so this might not be a message that you're sending to your kids, but this is a message that you're kind of reinforcing in yourself. It's like, I'm giving these kids toys because, good moms can give their kids more toys. So you're either, you're perpetuating that deeply rooted belief of things make you happy, giving your kids things, buying your kids things makes you a good mom, or, not being able to makes it so that you're maybe not a great mom. Okay. Like, those are just really deeply rooted messages that we are continuing to spread when we say things like this. So let's see what people are saying in the comments. I told my kids I'm throwing them out because there's too much. Yes. And we're going to talk about that too. Like, honesty is the best policy, some other ways to approach it, because giving is never the problem. Okay. I don't want you guys to think that I'm like anti-giving or anti-generosity or anti-helping people who need help, but this isn't exactly the best way. And I'm going to tell you guys some truth about why I did it as well. Caitlin says I've done that too, to make it better for my kids to understand, and they still don't really get it. Yeah. Hang on. They don't get it, because that was another thing. My kids didn't understand it either. Things make more work. Yeah. So just overall, when we say things like that, when we do things like that, we are sending the message that things are what make people happy. How much you have is what makes people happy, even though you're literally getting rid of it in a pursuit to find some sort of relief and happiness not associated with your things. Okay. So I'm hoping that you're seeing like this is kind of I don't know the correct word, an oxymoron, a conundrum, a completely backwards practice of do as I, not practicing what you preach. Okay. So anyway, I want to tell you guys why I said it, but first let me see what Bethany said. So Bethany says, when we donate toys, I almost always give them to groups who are having garage sale types of fundraisers. That way it's not giving the messages that you're talking about, but still helping a worthy cause. Yes, exactly. So I'm going to give you guys some suggestions on ways to kind of turn it around, because I think the reason why we say it is really important, and understanding why you say it. So I'm going to be totally honest. When I said this to my kids, it was in an attempt for self-preservation, okay, so that my kids wouldn't be mad at me or upset with me. And I was trying to just put this pretty little bow on it and making it like a good, happy thing for them and a good, happy thing for me. Not because I wanted to teach generosity or helping somebody in need, but because I didn't want my kids to be mad at me. And I didn't want to feel, I wanted to kind of release some of that guilt around getting rid of their stuff. So if you guys know my story, We got rid of everything, literally everything, moved Alaska to Florida with 3 suitcases. 2 of them were clothes and 1 of them was toys. And I had immense guilt and fear around that. I thought my kids were going to hate me. I thought they were going to be bored. I thought they were going to resent me. I thought I was going to ruin their life essentially by not giving them these toys. So as we packed up the toys and got rid of everything that didn't fit into that 1 suitcase, I told them, don't worry, kids who were 2 and 4 at the time and didn't understand anyway, we're going to give these toys to kids who don't have any. And those kids are going to be so happy to get these toys. And they were 2 and 4. Like, if you know anything about 2 and 4-year-olds, they can't comprehend that. They don't care about anything but themselves. So they were like, okay, cool, whatever. Like, I don't care. Especially the 2-year-old. He's just like, whatever, I have to be in the car again. And the 4-year-old is just like saying bye to her toys. Hey, Sarah Ann. I tried to invite you. I think I did. But my 2 and 4-year-old had no concept of that. They did not have any concept outside of their own little world. They're 10 and 8 now and are, I think personally, just now to the point where I could tell them, hey, we're going to help a family out. And they would just now be understanding it. Like, they didn't have the ability to understand that back then. It was 100% to help myself, to make myself not feel bad, to make myself not feel guilty for taking that away from my kids. And as you guys know, it was one of the best things I actually gave to my kids was freedom from stuff, freedom from things. So that's why I said that, was not because I was teaching generosity, not because I was wanting to give them the experience of giving or helping somebody else or making somebody else's life better. It was to preserve myself. Okay. And I don't know if you guys can relate to this. Let me know if you relate to this. But the next part that I want to talk about is that when it comes to teaching these lessons that we're trying to teach by giving toys. Oh, wait, the other thing that I want to tell you guys before we get into that is that when I said we're going to be giving these toys to kids who don't have any or to kids who don't have a lot, I wasn't out distributing these to families who didn't have toys. I was not. What I did was drop those toys off at Salvation Army because I didn't want to deal with them. I didn't want to deal with selling them. I didn't want to deal with meeting up with people. So even if I were like, I'm teaching generosity, I'm teaching giving, that's not what I practiced. I practiced the quickest, easiest way to get them gone, which, if you're in this group, is likely what you're doing as well. Dropping it off at a donation center, a buy nothing group, Facebook Marketplace. Like, you're not, most likely, if you are, high five to you. I'm not talking about you in this episode then, but you know, do you figure out, do you hear what I'm saying? Like, I told my kids, we're giving them to families who don't have any. And by families that don't have any, I mean Salvation Army down the street, right? Like, that's a backwards message. That's not me practicing what I preach. That's me just trying to survive, trying to get rid of all the excess that I have, which is okay. Like, don't feel badly about that. Not everything in your home is going to go somewhere magical and special and change somebody's life. Okay. There's that quote that a lot of people like to throw around, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Well, one man's trash is also another person's clutter, right? Like, let's be real. If it's clutter to you, most of your clutter is also going to be clutter to somebody else. Hey, Shaylee, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to feel badly about that. You declutter, you get mindful about what you have and why you have it, and then you move on and you don't overconsume in the first place, and it's this upward spiral. Okay. Hey, Shaylee. Hey, Sarah and Amy and Angela. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think I'm crazy? Is this crazy pants talk? Is it making sense? But so the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is what people really need. Okay. So I shared the story with you guys. My dad, I come from a divorced family. It was pretty lopsided as far as lifestyles go from my mom's house and my dad's house. My dad definitely took the financial beating of the situation. Okay. He struggled. Money was really tight to the point where a few years in a row, he signed up for the Secret Santa program, which I don't know if you know anything about that. It's where at Christmas time, if you meet the income and whatever requirements, you can get presents donated to you that they'll give to your kids. So we participated that at my dad's house for a few years. And that was great. Like, great program. I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I like to sponsor families. But I have to be completely honest that if you are a family who's struggling to the point where you can't afford Christmas presents, the type of support and things that you need are not toys. Okay. And we've been a family who struggles and is like, how are we going to buy presents for our kids? Right. Like we've had Christmases that, Christmas happens a few days after the 25th so that we could buy presents, and our kids were young enough that they didn't understand dates. So we've had Christmas on December 28th just so that we could get them presents. But the thing is when people are struggling to that point, the toys aren't what they need the most, right? The families in need, the kids in need don't need toys to make them happy. What they need is time. Okay, those parents need time. They need friendship. They need support. They need education in the form of like parenting skills and parenting classes and therapy if they feel like going to therapy. That's the kind of support they need, not toys. So one of the suggestions that I have, if you really want to teach your kids about generosity and giving and support, don't give things. Like give, I know this sounds so cheesy, give your time, like adopt a family, support a family, invite them over for Christmas to spend time with you guys and to have dinner or on a play date, and just show up for them and have conversations with them and let them know like, hey, we've struggled this bad too. Like that's what people really need. That's what kids really need. Kids really need parents who have a community and a support system, right? But it's harder to give that. It takes more time. It takes more energy. It takes more effort than dropping off a bag of toys or something. Okay, I'm not saying don't give. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But maybe be a little bit more mindful about what those families actually are needing. I know for sure my dad needed friends, friends with kids who got it, single friends who understood him and his struggles trying to raise a bunch of daughters by himself, right? Like that's what my dad needed, not a bunch of generic toys to unwrap on Christmas morning. Grateful for all of that, 100%. But when we send these messages, like the toys are what makes them happy, I'm kind of like, maybe some support, maybe some time, maybe a phone call, maybe an invitation to have the kids over and play. Okay, so that's one thing to do instead. Another way to approach this, instead of like we're giving it to somebody who doesn't have any, is like Bethany said earlier, like donate it to somebody hosting a garage sale. Maybe there in Idaho, I'm sure California has one too, but I haven't found one yet. In Idaho, there was a thrift store where all of the like profits, it was a nonprofit. So all of the money that they made that was excess went to supporting youth in the community. It was called the Idaho Youth Ranch, and it was a thrift store. You bring your stuff there, and all the money that they made went to support families and kids, at-risk youth in the community, which I was like, that's awesome. Take my stuff and sell it and help a good cause, right? Like that makes sense. Goodwill, it's easy. They are for profit. They are a big moneymaker. They're doing fine. Salvation Army is another one. There's a lot of different ones. You can do it direct to the source on a buy nothing page where this is kind of where it gets easier to deliver directly to the source. But on a buy nothing group, at least when you post things up, you're giving it directly to somebody who explicitly wants it and will take it. And, you're not like out trying to find people who want it. Buy nothing groups weren't a thing when I let go of all my stuff like 6 or 7 years ago. If they were, I didn't know about them. But that's another way you can do things like, I really like, not a lot of people know about this, but I worked for Head Start and Early Head Start, and you can actually call them up and ask them like, hey, do you have any families who would, who could need some toys, or who needs some clothes, or who needs some kitchen supplies? Hey, Danielle, because they will give it, Head Start and Early Head Start will deliver it directly to the families. That's what I used to do. I used to be a Head Start teacher and an Early Head Start teacher, and my job was advocating for families and finding them resources and things that they need. So, you can always call up your local Head Starts and be like, hey, I have this, this, and this, and this. Do you know of any families who could use it? I would love to give it to them. Amy says, preschools, daycares, churches, women's shelters. Yes, preschools and daycares, as a former teacher too, they always like being given toys, crafts, even extra clothes, because a lot of times kids will have accidents at school and parents forget to send extra clothes and they need to change. So, but when you're giving to like preschools and women's shelters and those kinds of things, I always prefer to call ahead and just ask them, hey, do you have a need for this? If not, I'll take it to Salvation Army or whatever. Because a lot of times they have an abundance of that stuff already. They don't necessarily need it, and it ends up just being, more of a headache for them to sort through it all. So I like to call ahead first and ask, like, do you have a need for this? If yes, I'll bring it to you ASAP. If no, no big deal. I got to get it out of my house, and it's going to go to the next place, which is probably the local donation center. Extra books and office supplies to Josiah's school. Exactly. Books, office supplies, those are things that preschools and teachers almost always need. And then you can kind of just give it directly to the source, but just make sure that you're asking first, because you don't want to just be like, here's a bunch of crap, and then it makes more work for them and they didn't need it in the first place. Which is going back to what I was saying, one man's trash is another person's clutter. Like sometimes nobody needs it, right? Because we live in a society that overconsumes in the first place, right? Like that's actually our problem, is overconsumption. The problem isn't not having anywhere to take it when you don't need it anymore. The problem is overconsumptions. Our library takes book donations too. Yeah. So there's so many ways. And when you present it to your kids, instead of, saying the thing that, if you were like me, used to say it just to preserve myself and my ego, tell them things like, we're going to give it to somebody who can use it, because we're not using it at our house. It's going to waste here. So we're going to give it to somebody who will use it, or who wants it, or who needs it. Or and I'll tell my kids this too, because we're an entrepreneurial family and we like to have these conversations, but I will tell them, like, we're going to give this to this store, in Idaho, it was the Youth Ranch. We're going to give it to this store and they're going to sell it. And then their business is going to make money and they're going to be able to use their money for whatever they want to do. So it's helping them out as a business, which is no big deal. Like there's no shame in wanting to support a business or a nonprofit organization either. Okay. So that's it for today. I'm going to hang up because my husband's been texting me. He wants some attention, guys. So I'm going to hang up and talk to him. But just a quick reminder, next week is the Clutter Free Motherhood Challenge. I'll put the link to sign up in the comments. It's bit.ly/Clutter Free Motherhood, a free decluttering challenge that we're running in here next week, and next week's episodes that I'm going to be putting up for you are going to be real life stories from real life moms who have decluttered their homes. Amy, I don't know if you saw that post. If you're still on here, I would love to interview you if you're up for it. Okay, so I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.